Hi everybody, welcome back. We're picking up a little bit where we were last week, and I will touch that briefly though. Talia told me that I have to go fast here. She's not next to me. She's back behind the camera again. And so what I have to tell you is you got to go watch last week's video, and I'll just do a real quick. Last week she brought up the concept of Sonder. This idea that there's a realization, an emotional realization that every random passerby you meet is living a life as vivid and complex as your own. And so don't see them for their differences, but see them as a beating heart, a living being on the path just like you. The next step we did was about focus, pointing out that when you focus on the things that make you different, you lose sight of that beating heart concept. And it's easy to get adversarial in those. But that's all I'm allowed to do. Got to move on. So happy 4th of July. You may even be watching this actually on the 4th of July. We're recording it the day before. Some 244 years ago to tomorrow's day, the Continental Congress of the United States finished their final draft of the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and they approved it. Believe it or not, they didn't sign it on the 4th of July. It wasn't until about a month later on August 2nd that they signed it. But this is the day that they finally figured out the wording was exactly the way they wanted. And it was fought out in that Continental Congress Freedom Hall. I think they called it the Continental Congress at that point. We've stood on the floor there and looked at the place where they worked through this. Understand that this was quite a battle as they went through it. So what I want to do with you here today is a little bit different, and Talia told me that I'm walking out on some thin ice here, which is probably appropriate. It's like 99,000 degrees outside, so there's probably a lot of thin ice, if any ice. But I do want to share this with you because I see where we are today, which was not her intent when she brought up this concept of looking at people as a life being lived. I see this problem being something that goes back through history in our country and all over the world. And I'm not ever going to get political with you in these because I believe that following Christ calls us to a much higher level than any politician or brand or anything like that could ever meet for us. And so I really want us to be over all of that as much as we can, at least in our discussions. But I do want to share with you a story that may be a little bit controversial, but it's an important story in our country's history and in understanding where we are today. But I want to start with the preamble, those first words of the Declaration of Independence that were worked over and worked over and worked over until they reached perfection. And I'm going to tell you that I don't know the hearts of the men who wrote these words and agreed to them. But I may understand the heart or the inspiration that pushed the pen in these ways. And as I tell you this story, I think maybe you'll catch up with a little bit. But first, the preamble. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are pretty words at the beginning of a document that basically says we're cutting off Britain and we're establishing our own Bill of Rights and Constitution and our own way of doing governance here. Of the people, by the people, and for the people. So in 1857, nearly 100 years after this document was ratified, a slave is being transported from one side of Missouri to the other. Missouri was split at the time, and I don't remember which side was which. Forgive me for that. You can go look up the story as we go through this. He was being transferred to the part of Missouri that was not free to the part of Missouri that was free. And as his owner brought him back to the part that was not free, this smart guy points out that because he was taken into free America, free United States of America, he now, as a man, could claim these rights that were truly given to all men. You read it there, right there in the preamble. All men are created equal. Not only are they created equal, but they're endowed by their Creator with certain rights that can never be taken away from them. And so Dred Scott, the slave, stands on this concept, and he says, I am now a free man. His owner says, oh, contrary, I don't agree. And Scott takes this case right to court. Of course, he's in court now in Missouri, and not free Missouri, in 1857, and the court immediately says, sorry, buddy, you're still a slave, you don't get freedom. Being convinced that he is standing on principle, that the Constitution is behind him, that the Bill of Rights applies to him, Dred Scott carries it to the next level, where he loses again. Finally, he gets this thing to the Supreme Court. I wish I could tell you that he won in the Supreme Court. And in fact, as I was talking to Talia about this, to my mind, he did. And here's why. I just got to read this story again about 5 years ago. We were at the Civil Rights Museum, and I saw that name, and Dred Scott, I'm going to go read that story again. Such an interesting story. Here's why I say he won. A fellow by the name of Taney was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. What he did was essentially he picked the word citizen and its definitions in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and he said that this word never meant to intend black people, free or slave. It was never meant to intend them. And so, forgetting all the rest of it, really forgetting even Dred's case that was incredibly well put together, he simply says, because you're not a citizen based on my decree, I no longer have jurisprudence. I'm Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. If you were a citizen, we could look at your case. Because you're not a citizen by my decree, we have to throw your case out of court. And so that's why he didn't really lose his case. It was thrown out because they determined that he shouldn't have ever been able to sue in civil court in the United States anyway. Not a great story, not a great time in history. And frankly, the Supreme Court justices thought, well, this is going to end this controversy forever. But what it really did, if you go back and read the story, is it kicked off a firestorm. They have been chastised ever since by courts, by Supreme Courts, by justices. Everybody looks at that and says the worst decision ever made by the Supreme Court. Really not even a decision. They simply decreed he shouldn't be there and threw the case out. Because if they had to try the case on his merit, he wins. Dred Scott beats the system using the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, claiming those rights, and he does it brilliantly. Of course, 4 years later, we wind up in the Civil War, and the Civil War ends in, obviously, the North winning. And the first thing they do upon winning is they put together those next amendments, the 13th, 14th, and they go through a few of those. And what those really do is they tear down what the court said in the Dred Scott case. They give that citizenship directly to slave and free, and they just fix all those problems so that could never happen again. Well, why do I bring this up? It's such a crazy story to tell on the 4th of July. When we're talking about seeing people for who they are, or is it? Unfortunately, in the case, all they could see, all Taney could see when he came in was a black man, a slave. And everything else that came after that, he judged based on that. All he saw with his eyes was someone who should not be in front of him. And everything else got judged according to that. And that's what we've been talking about. I think in the world today, we need to focus on this. So here's the deal. I'm going to move quick. Talia came up with this idea. She wanted to take a camera and ask people one question 3 times, sharing a picture with them, and asking them just what their first reaction is. And the reason that we did this was we did this story about focus. The people that we're talking to are all from one of 2 camps except one. The first camp is they're volunteers at the Community for Better Living. The second camp is they're clients of the Community for Better Living. So camp 1 are all people that are here volunteering to help other people, and that's their mindset and that's their focus. Group 2 are all here to be a part of what we're doing. Yes, they have needs, but they all share with each other what they're getting. That group 2 has become family with the serving group. They help others. They take food to others. Can't tell you how many times somebody comes in and says, oh, we came late because so-and-so got back from here and called us and said they knew we were in need and sent us up here. There's one other person that showed up in the video, and that's a young lady that was over at the laundromat across the street. Talia and I walked over there, and here's how I got her. I just approached her car. I said, "Ma'am, would you please be willing to help my daughter? She's doing this project, sort of an experiment, and she's trying to get folks to answer this question. Would you be willing?" And the lady was really gracious. "Oh yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that," and really did a nice job there with Talia. So I, by asking that way, even set her mind in the way of trying to help this young lady finish this project. So go ahead and watch that. I'll be back real quick afterwards, and we'll pick up with you again.
Nobody looks too happy.
People. The red shirt.
Okay.
Everybody's going the same direction.
Okay.
Produce I gotta take from over here.
Enjoying lunchtime.
Here, okay.
There are people out in the mall going about their business, whether it's work or relaxation.
Sure.
The buildings.
Oh, just crowd walking down the street.
It's like a sporting event, crowd at a sporting event.
Yeah, that looks like a soccer game in Europe.
Okay.
Yep.
And this picture.
Ooh. A crowd.
Okay. Is it more people?
Zillions of people together. Or is that babies? Baby pictures, I can't tell. It's so many together. I don't got my glasses on.
Almost looks like they're at a football game or something.
Or the Indy 500.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. I just see a big crowd.
But what's that yellow thing?
It's a shirt on
is it?
somebody. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just
Bunch of
people.
at
A yellow jacket.
Welcome back. That was just fun as we go through. Fun to notice that folks were focused on various different things, not anger, not prejudice. These were just all folks there to help, and they're trying to help Talia answer a question. Clean. All right, John, the apostle, closes his book this way. Jesus also did many other things. If they were all written down, I suppose the whole world could not contain the books that would be written. Why finish with that? Christ was so focused on who people were. Actually, one step beyond that. Not only did he not see Gentile, Samaritan, sometimes he saw a Pharisee, I guess, but that's only when they pushed it in his face. Not only did he not see, actually, let me take that back. When the Pharisee comes to him at night, he doesn't judge him as a Pharisee. He answers the questions. So he doesn't see Gentile, he doesn't see Samaritan, he doesn't see female, male. He does not make those judgments and determinations ahead of time. He doesn't see a prostitute when he's called to judge a prostitute. What does he see? He sees a random passerby that is living a life as vivid and complex as anyone else's. He recognizes that there is need in their life, and his determination is to figure out what that need is and put his finger on it and help them answer that need. That's why John closes his book saying, if I tried to write down everything that he did for other people, I don't think the world could hold the volumes that I'd be writing. Christ's ministry that John was talking about took place over 3.5 years. That's it. Every day he woke up, he met people that didn't fit, but to him they fit. Every day he stepped on the street, someone had a need and he saw it, and his heart was driven to answer it. And friends, what he tells us is This is what the kingdom of God is. We are called to follow in those footsteps, and I challenge you from this day forward. You can call it Sonder, you can say don't judge a book by its cover, or whatever you want to say. But there are no labels that fit. There are no brands to judge. There are no tattoos or piercings or hair colors or scars or anything else that matter as much as recognizing a beating heart and a need in someone's life. Thank you all. Love you. We'll see you soon.